If you want to be more consistent, you're in the right place. I'm Elizabeth Benton. Welcome to Consistent, a podcast by Primal Potential that is for all of you who feel frustrated by your lack of progress or overwhelmed by all the change that you want to make in your life. Here, we stop frantically chasing new habits and start strategically building a structure of consistency. Let's get into it. Hello and welcome back to the Primal Potential Podcast. I am Elizabeth Benton. Thanks so much for joining me for today's episode. You get the benefit of the fact that I went to a marriage conference last week, but this is not an episode on marriage because I would be wholly unqualified to speak on the topic. But one of the things that came up sort of as a result of really the entire weekend was the power of running with a pack. And I do not mean that in some way of like, you need to have a lot of friends and community matters because A, people probably know that. B, I'm an introvert. And C, this is actually very different and much more strategic. And a pack is way more than community. A pack functions very differently than just friendships or people who you're close to or people around you. One of the greatest advantages in my life, and this is certainly something that's evolved over the last, say, 5 years, is having people around me who will not let me become a worse version of myself on account of being tired, frustrated, angry, emotional, discouraged, or stuck. And I was telling my husband that I am just so incredibly grateful that we've gone out of our way to develop relationships with couples that really function to protect our marriage. You know, I can go to these friends and say, I'm frustrated, or this is hard, or I don't know what to do here, but they're not gonna tolerate me talking crap about my husband, right? They're not going to co-sign me being petty or disrespectful. They're not going to allow me to rehearse a perspective that makes my marriage worse. They might help me pray through it or help me respond better or, reframe it for me. But they function to protect the standard when that feels inaccessible to me or I just don't want to do it. And that is one of the greatest gifts of my life. That's really what a pack does. The pack helps to protect you when you want to quit, give up, throw in the towel, slow down, back off. The pack helps you hold the line when you're tempted to slip into excuses or self-pity or blame or avoidance or shame. The pack doesn't just stand there and watch you spiral or say, yeah, that's real hard. The pack runs with you, the pack steadies you, the pack sharpens you. It reminds you of who you said you wanted to be. Now, I did not have this in my first marriage. I did not have this when I was a chronic binge eater. You know what I did when my health wasn't going in the right way, when I was deep in a cycle of binge restrict? I hid. Nobody knew what I was doing. I had no pack. And again, this isn't just like friendships because I had friends and I had family, but I didn't let people in to help me hold the line when I didn't want to hold it. And people wonder why they keep falling back into these patterns. And in almost every situation, they are not part of a healthy pack. I want to take just a minute here and talk about independence because I know that there are a lot of people like me who are introverts or who say that they're private or shy. And I fell hard for this lie of independence for a really long time, partly because I think it's just a story told to women that we need to be strong and independent, or also to business owners, get yours, take care of yourself. This idea that doing things alone is somehow stronger or more mature or more admirable or more impressive, but it's not, right? I thought for the longest time that if I could do it by myself, I should, and that asking for help meant that I was less capable than if I was able to do it alone, and that asking for help was either a burden or a weakness or both, and that figuring it out alone was a badge of honor, but it's not. A lot of times I think we call independence what's actually isolation. And isolation is really expensive. It's heavier, it's slower, it's harder, and it's unnecessary. One of the lines that hit me the hardest at the marriage conference recently was that if you don't have community, you're putting the whole weight of your dysfunction on your spouse. And I was instantly like, yeah, well, sure. But also way outside of that, when I didn't have community, I was putting the whole weight of my food dysfunction and my money dysfunction and my health dysfunction and my emotional dysfunction. I was putting it all on myself. And I was so frustrated. Like, why can't I do this? Why can't I stop making excuses? Why can't I follow through? Why can't I be more consistent? Why do I keep falling apart? Because I didn't have a pack. And so I was putting the whole weight of my dysfunction on myself. No, right? If you don't run in a pack, a healthy pack, you're putting the whole weight of your bad habits on yourself. You're putting the whole weight of your blind spots on yourself. You're putting the whole weight of your shame on yourself, the whole weight of your confusion, the whole weight of your discouragement, the whole weight of transformation. You're putting it on you, and you don't have to. Now, a lot of times we don't share because we're ashamed. And that just keeps us deeper in the shame, you know? What I have found is I actually love and respect my people more when they're real about what's hard. Because whether I know it or not, I know you're not perfect, right? Whether I know the details of your dysfunction or not, I already know you're not perfect. I already know you have issues that I don't see. So when you call them out, it builds trust. It builds a bond. It allows me to see where I can help, right? We're not faking it though as well as we think we are. Maybe you can do it alone, but you shouldn't. I want you to think about a pack of runners. You know, I think if most people know that if you're an elite runner, you almost always train and race as part of a pack all the time. And so when we look at, I live in the Boston area, I live on Cape Cod, and the Boston Marathon's a really big deal around here. And the people that are most competitive, they don't train alone and they don't race alone. They're part of a pack. And that's not because they're weak. It's because they're wise. The pack helps them regulate their pace. Hi, anybody here ever go out too hot with your goals, a plan that's too strict or too intense or not realistic? The pack helps regulate your pace. It helps protect your energy. When you run in a pack, there's actually like mechanics of wind resistance that save energy, meaning you're not working as hard in a pack as you have to work if you're not in a pack. The pack cuts resistance. It keeps you from getting too far in your own head. It keeps you moving in the right direction. It keeps you encouraged. Hey, eyes up. Let's stay focused, right? It's a really powerful buffer against distractions. Whether we're talking about running or we're talking about life, when you run with a pack, you save energy. Not because your problems go away, but because you're not wasting so much energy trying to handle it all yourself. You're not wasting energy trying to hide. You're not as likely to spiral, to second guess, to isolate, to do everything inside your own limited perspective. Sometimes the pack saves you from your own distorted thinking. Sometimes the pack is like, hey, so that's never worked for you before, so maybe we don't do that this time. Sometimes what the pack saves you from is discouragement, negativity that can derail you. Sometimes the pack saves you from that story you tell yourself when you're tired. I don't even care. It doesn't even matter. I'll do it tomorrow. The pack cuts through that resistance. It protects your pace, right? It keeps you from sprinting into extremes. It keeps you from disappearing when things get hard. That was my play when I was a binge eater. I would isolate, withdraw, and nobody knew. But at this phase of my life, people know. People know. My girlfriends aren't afraid to say, hey, what's going on? You haven't quite been yourself. Or they'll know if I'm not working out regularly, because you know what? When I am, they know about it, right? They know about it. Sometimes because they're doing it with me. The pack protects your perspective. When you're too focused on the problem, the pack's like, hey, head up. right? When you're locked into the excuse, the pack says, nope, that's not the focus. When you're drowning in the moment and you're spiraling, the pack helps you remember where you're going. The pack protects your standards. The pack says, hey, I know you're tired and we're going to keep going. I know you're discouraged, but let's work through it. Pack protects your energy because you're no longer carrying the whole thing by yourself. You're no longer trying to generate all of the solutions by yourself. And honestly, the pack can protect you from yourself. Because sometimes the biggest threat isn't a circumstance, it's the way that you're perceiving it. And if you're in it by yourself and nobody knows, then nobody can help you out of it. The number one reason I think I struggled with my weight for so long was isolation, because the isolation allowed me to be dishonest with myself. To go back to the gift of friends in marriage who call me out, like they don't allow me to be dishonest and it's all Chris's fault and it's never going to get better. They call me out of that fast. I can't stay in those unhelpful perspectives for long because I'm not in them by myself. So I'm less likely to stay there for a long time. If I was doing well as a binge eater, if I was like on the right track, I was on the right track alone. And if I was not on the right track, I was off track alone. Sneaking food, keeping secrets, trying to privately manage patterns that were ruining me. And that is exhausting. We're more likely to feel hopeless, right? One of the big reasons that I think people stay stuck is because they're pretending to be okay. It's not that they don't have help. It's that they're not letting themselves be known. Hey, it's not that you don't have help. It's that you aren't letting yourself be known. You're so committed to coming across as fine that you never put yourself in a position to actually get stronger. I hate that whole script of like, I'm all right, I'm doing fine, doing okay. And I can see on your face that you're not. Right? I'm not saying everybody needs to know everything and we need to air our dirty laundry and like put everything transparently out there for the world. Not at all. Somebody needs to know that you're struggling with binge eating and where you're at with that. Somebody needs to know that your spending is out of control and where you're at with that today. Somebody should know if your marriage is in a hard place and what's happening day to day. I told my girlfriend after the marriage conference, I was like, hey, there's a couple perspectives that I'm really working to change in my marriage. And I said, I'm just going to send you a text at the end of every day and just let you know how it went, what went well and what didn't, because I don't want to be carrying this all by myself. I want you to be an encouragement. I want you to notice if I stop doing the work, because I know and I trust that you'll call me out on it, right? If nobody knows, you're alone in the version of the story that your problem is telling you, or your shame is telling you, or your anger, or your frustration, or your hopelessness. That shame is a liar. That isolation is a choice, right? You need people in your life who can say, that's not the whole story. That doesn't work. This is a pattern here that's not serving you. Just this morning, I said to one of my defense clients, with coming from a place of love, I said, I'm going to tell you a pattern that I see here that I think is hurting you. Hey, we need people who can do that. Not people who are harsh or cruel or mean, but people who say, hey, I'm just going to share something with you that I think you need to hear right now, or something that I see that I'm not sure that you see. Not to like drop it and walk away, but hey, let's work through this together. And a lot of times I'm that person for my clients, and that's great. I have people that I pay who are that person for me in different areas, right? I was talking to a client just last night in defense, and she said, this one's really hard for me. She said, I don't know how to change my perspective here. And I said, exactly. And you don't have to have all the answers. When you have that pressure and you don't have a pack, you feel like it's all on you. And so when you don't know, you feel stuck and you're more likely to quit. I said, bring it to me. Let's talk about it. I feel very confident that together, talking this through, we can not only come up with an alternative perspective, we can come up with 5 alternative perspectives in as many minutes, right? A lot of people think that not knowing something isn't the problem. Like, I don't know how to solve this. I don't know how to fix this. I don't know how to change this. Not knowing is normal. Not knowing how to change the pattern or interrupt the habit or shift the thought or see it differently. If you could see it clearly from where you were, you probably would have already changed it. Sometimes you need to borrow a perspective from somebody else. Sometimes you need somebody else's fresh perspective, somebody else's language, somebody else's honesty, somebody else's belief. I had a client say to me just a couple days ago, she said, I know this is going to be a struggle for me for the rest of my life. She's talking about a pattern of negativity. And I said, I'm not going to co-sign that. I can't change her belief, but I said, hey, I'm going to stand on the belief that it's not going to be a struggle for the rest of your life and that we're closer to a breakthrough than you think. And that actually in a matter of months, we'll be on the other side of this, right? That's what a pact does. A pact says, hey, I know that feels true right now, but I'm not going to help you make it permanent. I'm not going to sit and spiral with you. I'm going to help you march towards a solution. And this is not just a marriage thing, and it's not just a weight thing. It's an everything thing. I have friends that I need to call me out of an unhelpful perspective in my work or with our finances or as a mom. Holy moly. I have friends who will not allow me to be like, I can't do this. I'm so overwhelmed. They'll say like, yeah, this is tough. And let's start talking about what we're going to shift, what we're going to change, how we're going to move through this right now. How can I help you? What do you need? What can I bring you? It's not that it makes life easier, but it makes our challenges and our struggles and our roadblocks easier to overcome, right? Having people who say, all right, let's rally. Let's problem solve. Let me come alongside you. Because the pack is not people on the sidelines cheering for us. Nope, it's not that at all, right? I think we can have those people too. But these are people who are running beside us, who feel the hardship, who are up against the same setbacks or similar setbacks. And if you're somebody who is resisting this on account of shame, I don't want people to know, I'm embarrassed, I should be past this by now, I don't want to admit that I'm still struggling. The shame is exactly why you need a pack, right? And I will say this, some people don't have a friend group or a sibling that they're close to, and I've been there. The pack does not have to be your spouse. The pack does not have to be local. It does not have to be big. It doesn't even have to be people you know in person. It doesn't have to be the ladies in your neighborhood. Your pack might be 3 people. Your pack might be 1 person. It might include people you rarely see or people you've never met in person. That's some of my pack and my work are people I've never met in person, and that's okay. It's not proximity that matters. It's the direction that matters. Are they running in the same direction? Will they tell you the truth in love? Will they help you protect your standards? Will they say the hard thing when it needs to be said? And will you give them grace if they don't say it the right way? Right? Being around people isn't the same thing as running with people. Being in a community is not the same thing as being part of a community. And I actually had this whole conversation with the consistency course the other night. We were talking about a number of things, and this was one of them. And I said to them, hey, being in this community is not the same thing as being part of this community. Watching is not the same as participating. Listening is not the same as being known. Observing is not the same thing as running with people. And a lot of people want the benefits of a pack without the vulnerability of joining one. That's a problem. That's not going to work. Right? They want support without exposure. They want accountability without honesty. They want encouragement without being known. But that's not how it works. I'm going to say this again. A lot of people want the benefits of a pack without the vulnerability of joining one. And they want support, but they don't want exposure. Or they want accountability, but they don't bring honesty. Or they want encouragement, but they're not allowing themselves to be known. And that's not how it works. You don't get deep support while staying surface level. Did I already mention the 2 a.m. friend thing? I don't remember if I did or not. One of the things that came up at this marriage conference was that as a married couple, you need to have 2 a.m. friends. And what that means is a couple that like knows where you're at in your marriage. And they're the people you can call at 2 a.m. And one of my friends came up to me and said, with tears in his eyes, and he said, "Thank you guys for being our 2 a.m. friends." And that has nothing to do with me and my husband and everything to do with the people who came up to us, the couple that came up to us, because we can't be their 2 a.m. friends if they are not open and vulnerable about what's hard and what's heavy, so that we know how to support and when to support. You don't get 2 a.m. people by keeping everything surface and polished and vague. Like, I'm all right, I'm doing okay, ups and downs. Somebody needs to know the real stuff. Somebody, not everybody, somebody. And I just want to, this was part of the conversation at the marriage retreat that I needed the reminder of, and I would imagine you do too. The pack is not flawless, and it's not going to be. People are not always going to say it perfectly, and that has to be okay with you, because you're not always going to say it perfectly. They're not always going to get the tone or the timing right, and that's okay. You have to give them grace for that, because you're not always going to get the tone or the timing right either. They're not always going to phrase it exactly as you wish that they had, or they're not going to understand everything the way that you wish that they would. That doesn't make it worthless. Right? A huge part of running with a pack is giving the pack grace in the same way that you want to be given grace as well. Right? Now, there's a difference between a loving truth and somebody just being a jackass from the sidelines. And I'm not talking about people being unkind or rude. I'm talking about people who are in it with you, running beside you, people who are willing to say, hey, get your head up, while they're also facing their hard things. Right? That's different than criticism from the cheap seats, or giving an opinion with somebody where you don't have a trusting, loving relationship, where you're not running alongside them. The question isn't if you can do it alone. It's why you keep choosing to. What is it costing you? What resistance could be cut if you just stopped hiding? What energy could be saved if you would finally let yourself be known and seen and be real? What perspective could you borrow from somebody else if you just stopped deciding you had to figure it out all on your own? Who are you running with? Not who knows you, not who follows you, not who would say they care about you, but like, who are you running with? Who knows the real stuff? Who tells you the truth? Who helps you protect your standards when you want to walk away from them? We all probably have that YOLO friend, like, oh yeah, don't worry about it. I know you said you weren't going to do dessert, but you only live once. Eat it up. Who helps you protect the standards when you want to drop them? Who helps you remember who you want to be? Who will say, I love you, and also, I'm not co-signing that, right? Who has permission to say to you, all right, enough, let's go. You need a pack. It's never going to be perfect. It doesn't need to be big. You don't need a pack in your zip code, but you need a pack. This is why in the consistency course, we do in-person events, because a lot of times we can accelerate the formation of these relationships in person, but it doesn't have to be in person. And I know that for my defense clients, sometimes I'm their first pack member, and that's powerful. One is powerful. One is immeasurably better than zero. Right now, guys, scholarship applications are open for the Defense Foundation's group that runs from April 1st through the end of April. If you do not have your scholarship application in, please do so. Not only would I love to consider you for a full or a partial scholarship, but also I really love learning about you in those scholarship applications, and I do respond to every one. So I'm going to link that up in the show descriptions. If you've got questions about it, shoot me an email, but do something today to build out your pack. And if I can be a part of your pack, that would be a really powerful place to be and a real privilege for me. That's what I am for a lot of people in the consistency course, and certainly for folks in Defense Foundation. So if you haven't filled out that scholarship application, definitely do so, because it is first come, first serve. And I'd love to get my response to you ASAP. So check out the show description for that, and I'll see you on the next episode. Thanks so much for joining me for today's episode. Remember, there's no podcast that will change your life or your habits. The difference maker is what you do with what you've heard. I have a free workbook to help you do just that. Head to primalpotential.com/consistency-questions to download a totally free workbook with 20 questions you can ask yourself to help you build a structure that supports consistency that's aligned with your lifestyle, your preferences, and your most compelling excuses. primalpotential.com/consistency-questions. And also feel free to email me, Elizabeth@primalpotential.com, if I can help or support you in any way. I'll see you on the next episode.